All right, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, unpause the video, and I'll go over the correct answers. So for this factoring, again, it's going to be like an x squared plus 4x plus 3. But instead of putting just an x at the front of both of your parentheses, you're going to put an x squared. And so the two numbers that you're going to want to use are a positive 3 and a positive 1. And that would be how you would factor that. For the math knowledge question, we have a square A and a rectangle B. The length of the square to the rectangle ratio is 2 to 3. And then for the width, it is 2 to 1. What's the ratio of the area of A to B? Well, the area of A is 2 by 2, which is 4. For B, 3 by 1, which is 3. So our ratio is going to be 4 to 3, E. We are looking at lesson 102 today. We're looking at binomial expansions, part 2. So we looked at Pascal's triangle back in lesson 77. That's where we had 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, and you would keep going. And that's when we use it to expand something like x plus y to the 5th or to the 6th. They haven't really gone too much past that, though, maybe to a 7. So those were from lesson 77. We're going to be expanding on those today. So hopefully you'll understand this part of binomial expansion. We want to find the fourth term of negative 3x plus 2y squared to the 4th. So the first thing we need to do is to draw Pascal's triangle. And we need to go to our 5th row, because this is anything to the 0, and then we have x plus y to the 1st. And that's if it's squared. That's for if it's to the 3rd. And so this is the row that we're going to be looking at. Now the fourth term that we are concerned with, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are going to have 4. And then this first one would be x to the 4th, and then x to the 3rd, y, and then x squared, y squared, and then x, y to the 3rd. So that would be what you would put if it were just x plus y to the 4th. However, we have negative 3x and 2y squared. So what we do, we have our first term, and then we have our second term, and it gets cubed because we have x and then y cubed. First is just to the 1st power, and then the second term is to the 3rd power. So our first term is this whole thing, negative 3x, and you do need to include the negative with it. So if there was a negative sign here, we would include it with the 2y squared. But since it's a positive, you don't really have to write it. And we have to cube it because our second term is to the 3rd power. So we have negative 12x, and then 2 cubed would be 8, and then y squared to the 3rd would be to a 6. Because remember, you multiply a power raised to a power. And so then the last thing that we need to do is to multiply negative 12 times 8 to get negative 96, x, y to the 6th power. So that would be the fourth term in that expansion. Looking at another example, we don't want to expand this one completely. So we're going to have our Pascal's triangle, and if you look back here, we're going to be using this same row here. 1, 4, 6, 4, and 1. And instead of using x and y, we are going to just use F and S. And so on the first one, we actually don't have an S. So I'm going to erase that one. And we have S to the 4th. And then we have F to the 3rd and S to the 1. And then squared, squared, F to the 1, S to the 3rd. And then on the last one, we actually just have S to the 4th. Okay? So that would be if you just had F and S instead of any other terms, any other parts in your terms. But we need to plug in 2a squared. Everywhere we have an f, because that's our first part here, 2a squared. So then plus 4, 2a squared to the third. And then our second term is this part here, negative x cubed to the first power. And then we have to do it again for each of the other terms. I'm going to put the last one right here. Okay, and so now we need to simplify these. So this one, we don't really need it because we're multiplying by something else, so it doesn't change it. We have 2 to the 4th, which would be 16, and then a to the 8th. Then we have 4 times 2 cubed, which is 8, and then we have a negative 1 here to the first power. That's just a negative 1. So we really have 4 times 8 times negative 1, negative 32, a to the 6th, and then x to the 3rd. On this next one, we have 6 times 2 squared times negative 1 squared. Well, negative 1 squared is just a positive 1. So we really just have 6 times 4, so 24, a to the 4th, and then x to the 6, because we have 3 times 2. For the next one, we have 4 times 2 times negative 1 cubed. Well, that's going to stay as a negative, so we have negative 8, a squared, and then x to the 9th, and then plus, because negative 1 to the 4th is a positive, x to the 12th. And so that's going to be your answer there. And notice that your signs do alternate from positive to negative, and they should if you have one that's negative and then one that is a positive. Okay? So let's look at one more. We want to find the third term of this binomial. So we had 1, 4, 6, 4, and 1 as the last row on our Pascal's triangle. So we need to go 1/3 to this row. And we are looking for the third term, which is going to be 10. And then it's going to be, the first one is going to be to the 5th here. And then we would have x to the 4th, and then we would have x to the 3rd. So this is going to be raised to the 3rd. And if this one is raised to the 3rd, the second one has to be to the 2nd. Because remember, your exponents always add up to that number there. So our first term is negative 3x, and our second term is 2y squared. So if we simplify that, we would have 10 negative 27x cubed, and then 4y to the 4th. And so 10 times negative 27 times 4 is negative 1,080. And then we have x cubed y to the 4th. And so that would be your answer there. Now notice, your exponents here don't add up to this number anymore. And they won't. That's only whenever you're doing it right here. Okay? So that's how you would do binomial expansion whenever you have more than just an x and a y for your two terms. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Your homework, you do get to omit number 1 and number 13, so make sure to do the rest of those tonight so we can go over any other questions you have tomorrow.